Well, good day, everybody. Welcome to the Bible in a Year 2021, and we're working on day 113, and we're switching over to Chronicles. First Chronicles, chapter 1 and chapter 2. This does not mean that we finish Second Samuel. It's just things are going to run in parallel now. So we are bringing in um, the Chronicles with Second Samuel, so that you can get the different perspectives on the same stories. But in this one, today, I mean today, oh, you have your choice today. You can just read through a list of names, um, and garner nothing from it at all, or you can open up your spirit to the Spirit and see what He has to say to you. In saying that, I just want to, you know, I I don't know about you, but a lot of people have checked into their family history or are checking into their family history, and it's very interesting. We don't have the same um, we don't put the same value on knowing our family history as what the Israelites did. But it's still interesting, and my wife has been checking into that. I encouraged her to check into it because she doesn't know very much at all about her family's past. And it's amazing the amount of information she was able to find in a very short period of time, because other members have done different branches of the family, and she was able to um, tap into their information. And so, like, she was able to follow one branch back to Jersey Island off of the French coast, French's coast, and other branches she's been able to trace back into France itself. And she can see where various members arrived here in Quebec, because Quebec is where she is from. And one branch of the family actually, she discovered, arrived as a garrison soldier back in the 1600s, which is really interesting. It's very interesting. I mean, the first people from France to arrive here was in the 1500s, but it's interesting to see how far the family goes back here in Quebec, and it just gives you this that sense of belonging. It's I'm new to Quebec. I'm from Nova Scotia, and I'm new to Quebec, to this province in Canada, and so I'm a newcomer. But her family has a rich heritage going back 400 years. That's how deep her roots are in this place, and so it gives her that sense of belonging. Um, yeah, the thing is that when we look at these things, for us, it's probably nothing more than a list of names, because we don't really, I mean, you may know some of the history of your grandparents, maybe even your great grandparents, but you don't know some of their opinions on things. You don't know where they stood politically. You don't know probably a lot about them uh, at all, other than their name, where they were born, when they died, who they married, what kids they had, that sort of stuff. But those are just facts about a person's life. That's not who they are. And the Israelites would pass on their family stories. So a lot of them were verbal, and some of them may have changed over a period of time. Um, but who they were was important to them, or who they came from was important. We know that in later on down the road, we find out that there's a family whose ancestor had forbid all the family to drink, and for generations nobody had a drink, and they understood the reason for it, that ancestor's um, reasoning for that, his opinion, and such. And but there's not a lot that gets passed down. Like, you and I don't have a rich heritage of these stories being passed down to us. We don't tend to share these things. It'd be good actually to write it down, write a small book for your kids and your grandchildren, your great grandchildren. So when they're looking back and they're curious, and your name comes up, there's all kinds of things that's attached to it, not just details of where you were born and but your actual thoughts, that you were a believer, and the way that changed how you lived and how you did things and such. Some of the stories of the things that you encountered, and basically your testimony. Do you pass down your testimony? Have you passed down your testimony to your children? Well, can you trust them to pass it down to your grandchildren? Maybe you will give your grandchildren your testimony, but will they pass it on to your great grandchildren? It's just be a really good project to write some of these things down and encourage other people in the family, and you could have this ongoing, growing book. That is more than just the details of who you married and what kids you had, but your opinions, your thoughts, your knowledge, and such, that you get to pass that down. That would just be an incredible thing. And this is so important to the Israelites. Now, you can just read down through those names today, and you probably already have, but there's just one thing I want to point out to you. Just one thing that if you pay close attention, you may pick up on some details that you won't find anywhere else. And it depends whether you can connect the dots. So just look at this in Chronicles 2. Um, we discover something here. We discover who David's nephews are: Abishai, Joab, and Asahel. Do those names sound familiar to you at all? Well, here, Jesse was the father of Eliab, his oldest son, Abinadab, his second, Shimea, his third, Nathaniel, his fourth, Rede, his fifth, Ozem, his sixth, and David, his seventh. Their sisters were Zeruiah and Abigail. Zeruiah's family: Abishai, Joab, and Asahel, three in all. Wow! Do you see that? This is the same three brothers that um, were great for David, but were also a pain for David. This is Joab, his general. This is this is David's general of his small army, and the brothers Abishai and Asahel. It's one of these brothers that Abner killed, even though he was begging him to not run after him. He didn't want to kill him because he had respect for Joab, and he ended up killing him. And it was then Joab who took revenge on Abner, and where there was this beautiful coming together of the kingdoms. Now Joab, because of his personal revengeance, has caused difficulties in this transition period. Um, and he ended up doing a lot of things that David didn't approve of. These are some of the men of violence that David talks about in his Psalms, when he talks about how he's a man of peace, but he's surrounded by violent men. And and David even says that he can't control them. He can't control them at all. That they're a pain to him. He can't control them. And so the reason that he tolerated them at all was because they're his nephews. They are his sister's children. Yeah, nowhere that I can recall. You guys can call me out on this. Nowhere do I recall in any of the things that we are reading that this has been pointed out. But we find it here in the genealogy, in the listing of the names. See, so it can add to your level of knowledge. It just makes some of these things more of a 3D thing than just this flat one-dimensional telling of the story. And then you can begin to understand some of the nuances that are going on here, and why David didn't deal with things in a certain way, because you tend to tolerate family more than you would tolerate somebody from outside of the family. Yeah, that's all I have to share with you guys today. I know it's short, but sometimes this is what we get in Scripture. But yeah, just consider, just open yourselves up to anything that the Spirit may be saying, pointing out to you. Read down through it again, see if you can see anything that really stands out for you, an aha moment for you. But just appreciate how important this is, because you remember when they come back um, from being kicked out of the land, and they're coming back from Babylon, that some of the priests and some of the Levites couldn't take part in the ceremonies, because they could not, their names were not written down. They could not trace their ancestry, because the records were incomplete, and so they were left outside being able to take up their responsibility. So that's how important this stuff gets for them. And so it's important for us just to make note of that. Don't try to memorize the names. Don't do that. There's not that much value in it for us. But we can at least see, because we've encountered some of these people in their stories, and we can see the relations that are going on here. So yeah, you guys, you have an excellent day. Thank you for being part of this, and I pray that the Lord will continue to enrich you as you study His Word. God bless.